Hey RV family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm back again to bring you another video, and in this one I'm going to be covering the Keaton Henson album entitled Six Lethargies. So I am planning on going through some records that I missed that I wanted to cover throughout the year, and this is one that I kept putting off, and I really shouldn't have put it off. Considering the fact that I am a huge Keaton Henson fan, and this album came out, and I'm not sure why I didn't review it at the time. He is one of my favorite contemporary folk artists. He's also a visual artist, a poet, and this is his 7th album. Fairly different than most of what he has previously released, considering most of the time his albums consist of very cut dry folk music, albeit folk music with a lot of heart and a lot of passion. If you go back to like his first album, Dear, or like take a track like Small Hands from that album, you really understand what he does. He has a lot of compassion in his vocal duties. He has a lot of quivering vocals, a very classical vocal type style for folk music, almost like cracking. But Keaton Henson's music possesses a knack for soul and heart that I have not really heard a lot of in the general folk, classical, indie folk landscape as of recently. I mean, I know a lot of people are interested in Big Thief, and I did review their newest album, but even they are a little bit too glossy for me, a little bit too dry for me. Bottom line, his songs have the aptitude to follow progressions, to follow structures, and to follow specifically emotions, unlike most of what passes my ears nowadays. He always latches onto a wave of strong emotion and rides it, but not before taking a few detours throughout the tracks to make sure they have enough life to not just seem like cardboard wallpaper. Take the track like The Falling, which is probably the best showcase of pure sorrow on the entire record. The first track does it really well to some degree, but The Falling is what I continue to return to, and I should also note that this album takes a classical tone. Like, a lot of Keaton's usual folk tendencies sort of dissipate on this record. But I'm perfectly fine with that. God, I'm so fine with that. The track The Falling might sound massive on first listen, but with repeated listens, you'll find out that it's fairly simple from a compositional standpoint. The violins can descend and ascend in a very rapid but sweet fashion, and there's also a staccato way to the way they're played. When they take the forefront, the minimalism is there, and it might seem sort of sappy, but it's not too saccharine, and it is definitely not too campy, which is most of my issue with a lot of folk music nowadays, even though this isn't a folk album. The many pauses in the instrumentation, albeit brief, provide this well-needed breathing room before they kind of push back into the forlorn sounds you're getting. And that is just one example on this record of how Keaton pays close attention to decking these songs out in simultaneously minimalism but intricacy. Not necessarily utilizing a 100-person orchestra to formulate these tracks and not even needing to. And it also makes a lot of sense when you hear a track like Trauma, another good example of that. As someone that has looked into Keaton Henson quite a bit because of how much I enjoy him, he does struggle with anxiety, and he does struggle with, I believe, agoraphobia. And because of that, he can fill out these tracks with these emotions through the instrumentation without even needing vocals. Trauma has this atmosphere that rolls forward that feels desolate. It feels like nothingness. It feels like a bleak desert with no oasis in sight and no landmarks in sight, no matter what. And you're not even making footprints in the sand as you are walking. And the tepid atmosphere as it rolls forward might even be considered boring or mundane or tedious to some people, but as it goes through that emptiness, goes through that abyss, goes through this massive void that is opening up as it's rolling forward slowly, very slowly, taking its time, patiently, and goes near the latter half where it just becomes this tension-building moment where it just sounds like you're literally about to unhinge, like you are about to lose your mind, like you're hearing voices in your head, like you're seeing writing on the walls, and you don't know how to break free of that hell. And I will say, as someone that is fairly anxious, I fully respect this track, I fully respect Keaton Henson, and I believe that's probably one of the reasons I like his music so much. This album isn't for everyone though. If you don't like patience building tracks, if you don't like minimalism in your classical music or your kind of folkish music, you're probably not going to like this. People that didn't like that Birth of Violence album by Chelsea Wolfe probably won't like this, even though they're so diametrically opposed, they're in different realms entirely. I think they're comparable in the way that they are just patient. To enjoy this album, I think you have to enjoy atmosphere, and I think you have to enjoy composition, and I think you have to have a keen eye and keen ears to understanding what goes into all these tracks to make them this one project, even though in the heat of the moment they might seem slow, they might seem like they're not doing much to move forward in their progressions. They're there, you just gotta pay attention. Overall, this is an extremely solid Keaton Henson album. I actually wanted to do a worst to best list of him, which I might actually do next year, even though I have quite a few worst to best album lists planned that I do need to get to prior to doing that. I love this record. I really love this record, even though it is not really like his folk music, and even though I do love him for his folk music, especially his early discography, it's still a solid record that I am returning to quite a bit and plan on returning to quite a bit. I'm going to be giving this album an 8 out of 10, and that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Keaton Henson album, Six Lethargies? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss this record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.